Today on the channel, we're looking at one of the 40th anniversary comic book series packs from Hasbro Pulse. We're looking at Grimlock on Way I Got It Figured.
The way I got it figured.
What's up, figure fans? Way I Got It Figured, back with another Transformers review. This time we're looking at the comic series Grimlock. I got this figure from Hasbro Pulse. Actually, it's not my figure. It's a loan from my good friend of the channel. Wanted me to review it. I'm expediting the review. And for some reason, it took him a considerable amount of time to send this figure. I don't know why it took so long, but it's here, and we're going to get into it. So, 40 years ago, the Transformers comic book series kicked off everything before the TV show came on and everything like that. It ran for 80 issues in America, and it started out as a 4-issue limited series that was produced bi-monthly. So it actually took 8 months for the first comic books to come out. And I think it was bi-monthly, I think, still for issues 5 and 6, and then after that it became monthly, something like that. But by the time issue 8 came out, you know, the first season of Transformers was like already like done and everything like that. But the Dinobots were the first characters outside of the original 28 characters to be revealed, along with Shockwave in the comic book. And this particular cover is from issue 8, and in issue 8 the Dinobots are revived and fight Megatron, and there's all that kind of stuff going on in there. So this version of Grimlock is from the comic book, comes with some extra stuff to go along with the Swoop release that's right around the same time. And we're going to be looking at all of that. So to start off with the packaging, as I mentioned already, this is a cover from Transformers number 8. William Johnson, I believe, was the artist, and you know, they were great. The art in those books were much better than the art that were in the previous issues. So that was 7 and 8. On the side, you got some Grimlock artwork that looks like it's Guido. And of course, it's like a slip case, so if you get all of these, it's kind of a continuous picture. More artwork from issue 8, or maybe even issue 7. It was issue 8. Because in issue 7, Ratchet has to make sort of like a Faustian pact with Megatron. And then he finds the Dinobots and replays Slag's memories, as Slag at the time, Slug, that's what we're calling them nowadays. And these are panels from that issue. And you got your Grimlock, which is a Studio Series 86 Grimlock, repurposed into comic book form, but it comes with swords and a crown, encapsulating kind of the first half of the Transformers comic book, because he only wore the crown while he was leader, but that's like something like 50 some issues in before he stops. Comic panels of them fighting Megatron, and it going about as well as you would expect. Kind of crazy. I got Soundwave and Optimus Prime's head, which also happened in that issue, amongst other issues. And Ratchet and the Dinobots confronting Megatron. And And it's black and white, so you might not be able to see it that clearly, but that's the box for you. And then, of course, because it's one of these comic book boxes, you can open it. You get a little panel. They do these with Black Series all the time. This paper is how it comes. Got your Grimlock in here. And I like how he's comic colored, but he looks like the cartoon. I always hated the way they drew Grimlock's head in the comic book. It was like a very simplified version, which I think did show up once or twice in the cartoon, but for the most part, he was not drawn like that. And you got some text here, and it's very small, so I'm going to read it. Grimlock leads a team of powerful Dinobots. He fights on impulse, making him one of the strongest and most unpredictable Autobots. Grimlock resents authority unless he's the one in command, but he hates Decepticons even more. This fuels the rage that he unleashes on his enemies. That's one interpretation of Grimlock for sure. And, you know, I guess if you want to keep these guys in here for display purposes, you can do that. But we're not going to be doing anything like that. We're going to get Grimlock out of the package and see what we can see. All right, so we've got Grimlock out of the package, and he's standing tall. He's a pretty big guy. The Studio Series 86 Dinobots are fairly large figures. Standing about 8 inches tall, somewhere up in that range. And, you know, it looks good, even in comic colors. So, of course, where things are black, they're blue here, because in the 80s, the transfers, you couldn't really use black very much. So you had to make things blue, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to see any detail. And this explains certain things like why Batman wears blue and why Superman has blue streaks in his hair. It's not because he's got blue streaks, it's because they couldn't do all black. That's why there's a gray Beast, because he was supposed to be gray, but the Beast, you know, he was supposed to be black, but they couldn't do black, so he's blue. It was based on the paper and the ink that was used to make comic books. So before the upgrading of paper became a widespread thing, that's what you had to do. Limited blacks. Mostly blues. And so, you know, it's an appearance of Grimlock. It's a means of creating that look. So this Grimlock is the 4th use of the Grimlock mold from Studio Series 86. There was the Shattered Glass one, then the Generation 2 sort of like Tiger Stripe one, which I did not get. And then finally this one. And I believe there might be another one, even though they're gonna redo Studio Series 86. So, you know, they're gonna do as many Dinobots as they can to make up for the mold. And while, you know, I will get most of them, I'm not gonna necessarily get all of them. This one, I do intend to get one for myself, but I'm almost buying it just for these 2 extra items, which are the swords to Sludge and Slug. So that's what he comes with, these extra swords. Similarly to how Swoop comes with the toy version of Grimlock's sword. Then this is Grimlock's sword from the comic book. So this is supposed to be his Energo sword. How it was sort of portrayed in the comic book. You've got a silverish, bluish, a silver version of the classic Grimlock weapon, the Galaxio rocket launchers. I guess that's what they call it. He actually came with a rocket launcher that you could stick on his shoulder. And I think that was actually the Galaxio rocket launcher. But he also came with this gun that we just sort of decided is the Galaxio rocket launcher. Oh, how could I forget? And then also in the comic, when Grimlock becomes the leader of the Autobots and also becomes monosyllabic, in issue 8, he spoke like a regular person, but after that, he never did again. He had a crown. So Grimlock in the comic book was definitely portrayed as an arrogant guy who just wanted to rule over everybody. They picked him as the leader when he beat Trypticon, and he then became like a tyrant until he was defeated by Blaster somewhere around issue 40 something. So, but he's got his crown. You can put it on him. As you can see, fits on his head perfectly fine. And it looks good. I like how they painted all of this black for shadows. It does give him a little bit of character. But it's a good looking figure. It always was. Right out of the animation, kind of animation model. And yeah, I've got no complaints. So as I said, I do plan to get one of these so that I can get these swords. And I'll probably just give the Grimlock himself to my son, so that he can have a Grimlock in his collection. I'm not gonna get rid of the, I'm not gonna trade this one for the Studio Series 86 version, but I still appreciate it. All right, so we're gonna get Grimlock transformed and check out that mode. Be right back. All right, so we've got Grimlock in Dinosaur mode, and his transformation conversion process is actually pretty easy, much like Swoop. They're definitely more complicated Dinobots than these two, this guy. And, it's the exact same figure as Studio Series 86, just with the comic book kind of panel lines and shadows drawn on. But he is very much the same figure. You can take his gun and attach it to his back. So basically you have the two post holes here, and there's two posts here, and you just line them up. Like that. And the guns are just stored on his back like that. Then the swords have kind of a, you can actually take the posts, just stick them on his legs. I mean, I think that's more or less Kind of lame, but you can do it. So you can just stick the swords on his legs. Or the one sword, you know, that's kind of his. I put Slag and Sludge's swords on him. There's Grimlock sword. But it doesn't matter, you know, you can stick them on there as posts, basically. Got the articulation on the small hands and the mouth. The head turns, looks up and down. So you got kind of like that. And you know, just general stuff like that. I've always been more of a fan of the Dinobots in robot mode than in dinosaur mode, which in season 3 they just sort of stayed at Dinobot mode, which is kind of lame. But you know, you can do it if you want to. Maybe you have more than one copy of Dinobots, I don't know. But it looks pretty decent in dinosaur mode, and that is what you get. So we're going to go back to robot mode and do some comparisons. Alright. Like Swoop, Grimlock is a really big guy, so we can only get one figure in the frame with him at a time. So we will compare him with the Dinobots first. Here he is with Snarl. Here he is with Slag or Slug, whichever you prefer. Here he is with Swoop. And last but not least, here he is with Sludge. So of course these guys are not in comic book colors, but you know, I wanted to show him with him because he really doesn't look that bad, that different. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't give Sludge his sword. Although I will say, Slug's sword is not exactly the same as it was. You know, this sword actually looked like almost like a regular sword. This is a lot more technological. But hey, he got a sword officially from Hasbro, so I'm not complaining about it. And you know, we like our Dinobots with swords, so there you go. And then of course, we gotta compare Grimlock to Grimlock. So we got the OG with the comic book version. And as with the other Dinobots, you know, he doesn't have flat gray and kind of flat yellow. He's gold and more of a silvery color, but it's really not that far off. They both look great in their own way. I like to use this one as animation error Grimlock, which you will kind of see coming up here. And Studio Series 86 Prowl Custom. Studio Series 86 Ironhide. And Netflix Bumblebee. Last but not least, bring in Earthrise Optimus Prime. So there's your comparisons. We're going to move on to final thoughts. Final thoughts on Transformers Generations comic book series Grimlock. You know, it's Grimlock. It's still the exact same figure from Studio Series 86 from a few years ago with some extra parts, but also not some extra parts. So like, you know, Grimlock came with a little wheelie. He took that away. But he does get a crown, 3 swords to go along with him. So crown and 3 swords. So, you know, I know ipso facto should be the same price, but he's actually $59.99 as opposed to $54.99, which Grimlock wasn't even really that because he was still when leaders were $49.99. So they definitely upcharged you a little bit, especially considering the Shattered Glass version, which I didn't have in the video, unfortunately. But he doesn't come with anything but just the gun. So for $54.99. So they're kind of definitely making up for probably some things here and there with the pricing. But he is pretty great. So given that, you know, the original Grimlock, even though I never gave him a review on the channel because he came out before I had a channel, that figure would definitely be a 10. And so given that this is a repaint, I don't think it's quite as good looking as the original, but you do get upgrades. I'm only going to take him down to a 9. It's still a great figure. It's a great figure. If you don't have Grimlock, you don't want to wait for this Studio Series 86 re-release, go ahead and get this one. If you're a Transformers nut like me, you know, I'm going to buy it for the sword and the crown anyway. But I have a son who likes Transformers too, so I'll just give him the Grimlock and keep the swords for Slag and Sludge. So there you have it. Again, it's a great figure. Thanks to my buddy who knows who he is for loaning it to me for the review. I will certainly try and pick one up in the next couple of weeks here just to make sure I get them myself. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. If you're new to the channel, you like the video, please like and consider subscribing. We are well on our way to 500 subscribers, and we have a goal of hitting 1,000 by the end of the year. I do have a giveaway that I'm planning to implement. I'm still sort of doing a little bit of research on how you do it on YouTube because there's very specific rules, but I do have something as a 500 subscriber gift, and I'll do something again when we get close to 1,000. But that is coming. I haven't forgotten about it. Just working out the details. Till next time, till the next video, everybody stay safe. See you on the next one. Peace.
The way I got it figured.